It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name's Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are talking about Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the plot?
I'll try. Marion has just lost her father and is moving to the island of Sawkill with her sister and mother. Zoe has just broken up with her boyfriend over her asexuality and has been living on the island of Sawkill for a while now with her dad, the chief of police. And Val is the handmaiden of a demonic entity who has been murdering girls all over the island of Sawkill. And these three girls develop a variety of complicated relationships as they attempt to unravel all of the murders that are happening on the island.
Are there wizards in this book?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entity, whose name I'm forgetting because he's mostly just referred to as him.
The Collector is what he is called.
Well, there we go. Anyway, he's a wizard.
And FBI agent Briggs, of course.
Oh, yes, of course, yes. Also, how could I forget that there's also, like, a shady conspiracy of horrible men?
You could forget because there's a lot happening in this book.
Yes.
A lot happens.
Are there lesbians in this book? Because I recall that you were some percentage of the way in, and you were like, why are we even doing this? Everybody is straight.
Yes, there are lesbians in this book. Or at least bisexual women, but I would say that there's a fair argument for lesbian. And as a matter of fact, this is classic hardcore Wizards versus Lesbians.
It is.
I understand why we're reading it, why we read it. Because it is Wizards versus Lesbians, and it has themes. It has Wizards versus Lesbian themes.
It sure does.
It does possess those. Why should you read this book?
Well, I think if you're really looking for asexual representation, you may enjoy Zoe's
You
entire
may
plot
enjoy
line.
the way that the asexual representation is handled in this book. You might.
If you're, if you're starved for asexual representation in your YA horror, let's see. I gotta hand it to this book. It's interesting. Like, it kept surprising me.
This is camp. This book is camp.
Yes.
You can, if you like So Bad It's Good, you will probably have a lot to enjoy here. I laughed a lot reading it. It has the problems that associated with So Bad It's Good. I'm not a So Bad It's Good guy personally, and one of the difficulties with So Bad It's Good stuff is that oftentimes you have to wait around a lot between the funny parts, which is certainly the case here.
Yes, but like even aside from the campy humor, I will get, I will give this, like, this book does make decisions that I was not expecting.
Yeah, no, it does surprise you occasionally. I will give it that. Why shouldn't you read this book?
Well, it's not very good.
This is profoundly bad on just about every level that you can imagine. I was really surprised that this book was published.
And has been nominated for many awards.
That is astounding because this reads like it was written. This is not fan fiction, but it reads like fan fiction, and it reads particularly like My Immortal level parody fan fiction, but it's incredibly sincere at the same time. So you don't even get like the enjoyment that we got, for example, from Payback's a Witch, because it was fun to laugh along at that book because it was not taking itself particularly seriously. Whereas this one is deadly serious about itself. And so in an effort, if you make the effort to enjoy it on the level of like, a car crash, you also feel kind of mean-spirited about it because it thinks it's doing something important. It's the pacing is terrible. The
Though the pacing is so bad.
The prose is terrible. The characterization is terrible. The poetry is abject. I have this little peeve about like metaphors involving the body, similes involving like, this character's
yes, which I think is really
doing...
not a good reason to judge a book negatively. I think this is just you being weird.
In this case, however, you must concede that the physical metaphors that are deployed in this book are so over the top awful.
Well, there's a difference between physical metaphors and describing emotions by their physical impact.
Yes.
And I think you tend to conflate the two and you complain about them.
However, like, yeah, I admit that one is a pet peeve of mine, but you must have noticed, right, when you're reading this, that it was somewhat stronger than usual? Somewhat more pronounced?
No, because I don't care. This isn't one of my pet peeves.
I envy you.
This isn't one of my pet peeves, and it's really common in YA, so I think I just don't notice. And also, as I have said before, I do tend to understand my emotions largely by their physical effects on my body, and so, I think it's a perfectly reasonable way to describe one's emotions.
Yes. So you might not have a problem with this one, but with that particular one. But everything else that I said, I stand by. But in that, it is funny and surprising at times.
And I would say, I think the characterization is a little bit thin, but not outside the sort of standard YA of the late teens.
Yeah, no, the characterization is
every character has at least 3 traits, and I think that actually makes them fairly fleshed out, again, by the standard of a lot of books that were coming out around this period. Though I gotta say that this book reads a little bit like it came out in, I don't know, 2015, 2016 than 2019.
There are a few reasons for that, which we can get into. The characterization, like, the characters are distinct from each other, although their voices are very similar, unless they're being like evil patriarchs who get their own voice. But none of them are teenagers, which is kind of a problem, given that this is a YA novel about teenagers. But we can circle back to that.
It's true. They really don't sound like teenagers.
No.
I mean, you can argue that with Marianne and Val, that's, a reflection of the ways in which they've had to grow up too early. But it really doesn't work with Zoe and Grayson, who are just bog standard teenagers.
Yes.
Doing a having a very teenage life and teenage emotional arcs and teenage relationship.
Oh, Grayson. Oh, I'm so looking forward to talking about Grayson.
Yes. A strong nominee for Token Good Man.
I will be shocked if Grayson does not win Token Good Man at the end of this year, for reasons which we will get into immediately after we talk about content warnings.
Oh my god. I mean, there's a whole lot of murder and grooming of teenage girls, as well as I think that it weirdly makes one of the things I think that really disappoints me about this book is that in the end it flinches. So, and one of the ways in which it flinches is that you spend a lot of time with threatened rape and then it doesn't happen. It only happens metaphorically. It was threatened on both the symbolic and literal level, and then only the symbolic version happens and the emotional impact of that doesn't really ever happen either.
Right. So you get like, you can't put it in the book, but you can put it in symbolically, and then having put it in symbolically, you deal with it in a disappointing and somewhat offensive fashion.
It's no longer dealt with. We should talk more about this post spoiler zone, actually. But yes, there is heavily threatened and actual rape that never happens. There's metaphorical rape. There is, I cannot stress this enough, a lot of murder of teenage girls.
There are bugs and creepy crawlies.
Oh, and there's some other like body horror. Oh yeah. There's lots of bugs and creepy crawlies. There's some other like possession, loss of body autonomy, loss of like mental and emotional autonomy.
Yeah, mind control.
Yep.
And, basic horror movie tropes.
Yeah.
I'm almost tempted to call the asexual representation a content warning, uh, given the way that it's handled.
I don't know. I think it's a very, again, it feels a little dated, but it also feels like it feels very after school special, but I don't think it's an offensive degree of that.
The way that her plot line resolves itself.
Well, we can talk about that. I would be interested. I mostly just found it clumsily handled, so I'm curious what you found so offensive about it.
I mean, like, I don't find any of, like, offensive is too strong a word for just about everything in this book.
Shall we jump to the spoiler zone?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. Little fairy girl, skipping down the sea. Little fairy girl, pretty as can be. Who is the fella with the bright, clean grin? Do you want, fairy girl, to weave a spell for him? Spoiler zone.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious why you think that this is bad enough to rise to the level of a content warning as opposed to just after school special.
I guess that you're probably more familiar with how these things generally tend to turn out in these books than I am. But the way that so much is made of it, and then the resolution when it is resolution time and everybody gets their happy ending, is that, oh no, we can have a relationship after all, me and my ex-boyfriend. It's just that we're not going to have sex, but like everything else is, there is this like bit, near the end where she's like, oh, I need boy cuddles, not girl cuddles. Like, she's asexual of the I am heterosexual, but not engaging in heterosexual penetrative sex specifically variety, because then they make out and it's nice. And
that's, I think, a reasonable way for people to be asexual.
Yeah, I just felt that it was like extremely convenient the way that ended up. But then again, everything else is.
I mean, it's extremely convenient. On the other hand, a lot of quote-unquote asexual representation, the resolution is, well, I'm willing to make an exception just for you. So by the standards, I think, of today's YA asexual representation, or really 2019's asexual representation, I think, oh, I do want a romantic relationship that involves some degree of non-sexual physical intimacy. And my absolutely perfect aloe boyfriend is okay with this.
Yes.
I thought is fine, I think. I think that the way that like they make a huge deal out of it, like this feels world ending to Zoe until, they're all almost killed, at which point she and her boyfriend are like, actually, maybe we can just worry about this when we both go to college. That actually seemed reasonable to me. Again, like, I don't think it was handled gracefully, and it was one of the least interesting things about this book, which often does make somewhat unconventional choices. But there's not good asexual. There's not, like, right now your choices are basically, at least this is the impression that I get. I haven't done a deep dive. The impression I get from reading people complaining about it is that a lot of times your choices are still either after school special or it's a robot.
I think you're right in saying that it is one of the least interesting things about the book. It is, however, adjacent to my favorite thing about the book, which is the saga of Grayson.
Yes.
Grayson, who our introduction to him as a character, after we get the basic idea, and of course the way that this book handles exposition is that we get the basic idea over and over and over again, because none of these characters can remember anything for longer than a day, and thus have to continuously explain their personalities and their motivations to themselves via their internal monologue with the differing viewpoints, and to each other whenever they meet, and as soon as they meet. Also, every character immediately tells everybody they meet everything about themselves the first time that they meet. But the first thing that we learn about Grayson after that they broke up is the image the image of Grayson sitting on the bed weeping after he has been informed by Zoe that his dick is so bad that not only did she not enjoy the sex, but she's never going to have sex again. And also, they're breaking
and
up.
And also she's dumping him.
Right then and there.
And also she's dumping him right then and there, when as far as I can tell, if she had just stopped for 5 minutes to go, I think I'm asexual, Grayson would have been like, I can live with that.
Because Grayson can live with everything. Grayson can live with absolutely anything. If these girls want Grayson to break into somebody's house for them, absolutely. If they want
him to bake cookies for them, absolutely.
If they want him using his 3 years of high school Latin, a thing which exists, to translate the cop grimoire that Zoe found lying around her dad's house from the Latin.
High school Latin exists.
I mean, yeah, it did when I was in high school.
My dad took Latin in high school.
Yeah, no, it did at one point.
Well, but part of the point of Sawkill is that it's way behind the times. Probably the Latin teacher just hasn't died yet.
The last year that my high school offered it was the year that I took it, freshman year in high school, which is longer ago than I want to admit on this podcast. But yes, no, so it's interesting that you were saying that the idea of Sawkill being behind the times is part of the point, where I sort of interpreted it as, because the things that are true of the people in Sawkill are also true of the people who came from outside Sawkill, which is that all of these characters are millennials rather than teenagers in the year 2019.
Right, like, it really did feel... just in general, it really felt like it was set in the 90s?
Yes, 100%. We know it's not the 90s anymore because they have cell phones. We know this because one of the teens says, "My phone service blows chunks out here."
Honestly, I think that the book would have done better if it had really leaned into that.
Yeah, no, it would have been great if that had been specified, because...
as a period piece?
Because all of the characters talk like teenagers from the 90s sort of were thought to talk. And all of their cultural reference... I mean, the most modern cultural reference that we get out of them is 30 Rock. But it's mostly Lord of the Rings, original series Star Trek, and a little bit of Next Generation Star Trek thrown in. And Alien... Like, these are, I mean, I don't know if this is part of like how you like write books for the lowest common denominator these days, and like this is part of...
I think there's some Buffy references as well, so it really does read like it's from the 90s.
Yes, it's like all of these characters are millennials with borderline personality disorder, and short-term memory loss, and the reason that they all have BPD is because one of the big themes of this book is jealousy between girls. Yes.
This book has like the most fascinating ever, like on the one hand, this book, you can, there's one way of looking at this book where it's just a bog standard girl power narrative. But
which in some ways
it's so weird, but it takes such a weird approach to it.
No, it's a bog standard girl power narrative that is like been refracted through as many metaphors as possible all at once.
Yes, and also with just like bonus murder.
Yeah, and like 3 genres at once as well.
Yeah.
But that is not to say that it does not possess these themes. It's like you're tempted when confronted with something like this to be just like, okay, brain all the way off for enjoyment of this. But that doesn't work with this one either, because the plotting itself is so haphazard that if you don't pay attention, you don't know what is happening. And some of it just straight up does not make sense. My favorite sequence of events in this book is the first murder party, or the first party after which a murder takes place. Mm-hmm. Because the sequence of events that happens with Val, the scion of the family who is enabling the murder demon, is Val knows that she's going to have to murder Charlotte at the end of this night. Val, who has become extremely close friends with
Charlotte
Charlotte.
doesn't get murdered at the end of that night.
No, she does. She does.
No, Charlotte gets murdered at the second party, I thought.
No. I went back and checked. This is all one thing.
I'm pretty sure that Charlotte is the second girl to get murdered on the island after they arrive. I thought that there was another murder. No. Maybe not.
The first girl who gets murdered was Zoe. The girl who got murdered right before that was Zoe's friend, who she's mad about when the book starts.
Zora. Okay, and I guess, and then Charlotte gets murdered, and then the other girl gets murdered, and then I think one more girl might get murdered, but I started to lose track.
Several more girls get murdered after that, but that's because we're just like sort of throwing girls into a wood chipper.
Well, she has to pick up the pace, yeah.
Like in a good feminist, take. The girls with no names or characters just get torn into bloody shreds for the sake of the stakes. Like you do when you're doing girl power, but but over the course of this one night, we throw a rager in the woods. There is the scene where we have this like weird scene where spiders drop out of trees onto some teenagers who are making out, which is just from a different horror movie, but happens to be in this book for some reason, in order to give Zoe a reason to confront Val so that they can have a tense conversation in which Zoe accuses Val of murder. Val is hurt by this. Val goes home from the party to her house and sits in her bedroom and reads Vanity Fair by Thackeray for the 17th time. That is what she does. While she is sitting in her bed, fuming at Zoe for not understanding her needs, her murder needs, her family situation.
I don't know. Val, the way that Val gets so genuinely offended that Zoe seems to think that, Zoe thinks that she has some relationship to the disappearance of Zoe's best friend, when Val, in fact, fed Zoe's best friend to a demon. And yet Val...
We need to get all of this Val POV because it's important that Val becomes a sympathetic character later, because girls can't be, tearing each other down when the patriarchy is to blame for all of this. So we need to understand that Val's feelings are valid too, including her hurt at being accused of the murder that she committed.
See, I did not get the impression, at least until the end. While I was reading the book, I thought that was that that this was supposed to be that we were not supposed to side with Val. Oh, it's so hurtful that you're being accused of murder. Like, I thought that
I immediately knew.
I initially read this as like Val is sufficiently like part of what Val needs to do to successfully gaslight all these girls into not believing that she's murdering them is to convince herself that it's to like really create two separate people, and when she's not in demon murder mode, then clearly it's very hurtful that somebody is disrupting her party, even though she's planning on dragging a girl off to be murdered in the woods after the party.
That would be a better book wherein that happened, but that is not this book. What happens in this book is that everybody feels their emotions extremely strongly immediately and tells each other their emotions, because it is the heightening of the emotions in the scene that is important, and not the way that things are going. If you like this kind of plotting and want every scene in a given story to have at least one completely unprompted, massive emotional confrontation, let me recommend a webcomic called Feast for a King. But, and I must stress this, only if you want a lot of graphic sex to be had also. Back to the events of the book. Val has gone home. She is in her bedroom. She perfectly overhears Zoe, who has also gone home from the party and has gone to Val's house, intending to put a sack of dead fish in Val's car as retribution for murdering her friend, mind you, having an extended conversation with the girl who has been drawn out of her house by the bone curse. Or what is it called? The bone call.
The bone cry.
The bone cry, my bad. Which is a thing that the island, a separate entity, which is referred to as the Rock, not the wrestler. Although once you start thinking about the Rock said this, the Rock did that, it's hard to get that out of your head also.
It had not occurred to me until this moment when you said it, but I'm way less into wrestling.
Yes. No, that is my own problem, certainly. But it's the way that it's capitalized. But the Rock has sent this other girl out. Marion and Zoe have this conversation. that that Val can perfectly hear from where she is in her bedroom reading Thackeray. Then the cop, Zoe's cop dad comes up. They have another conversation that Val can perfectly hear and react to from her bedroom where she's reading Thackeray. After this is all done, Val goes back to the party where Charlotte still is and then lures Charlotte away to be murdered that night. That is all one evening. And then that is that thing is the basis of what is at least mooted as a murder mystery, even though all of the characters already know what has happened for various supernatural reasons.
Yes. I do have to hand it to this book. I was pleased that the sister, I thought that a major part of the plot was going to be, we have to like de-brainwash the sister before she gets murdered. But no, the sister gets murdered in like a third of the way through the book.
It's important that the sister gets murdered because otherwise that would present a problem for Marion's relationship with Val, because Marion is absolutely sexually interested in her own sister at the beginning of this book. And the way in which that is brought up because it is meant to help set up this like jealousy problem that is the start of like the book's thematic content. There are two basic things that are going on with regards to how women must deal with patriarchy. One of them is that the patriarchy pits women against themselves in order to maintain its own power in a way which becomes hilariously literal later on in the book, when in fact the way in the sort of Otori Academy kind of a way where patriarchy makes women fight each other rather than fighting the system is that it gives them superpowers and makes them have a superhero battle in the woods while they all watch on, wearing their cult robes before they get trampled to death by horses. Except for the ones that survive getting trampled to death by horses and are then arrested by the island cops and brought to the police station, where everybody is always going to the police station for some
I know.
reason.
But part of my favorite thing about how this book ends, which by and large I think the ending to this book is terrible because it keeps flinching, but one of my favorite things is that the patriarchy cult is framed for all of Val's murders, and this is absolutely presented as a good thing. Because, we might as well, right? Like, the demon is just the demon and the cultists, they might be fighting, but really they're all the same patriarchy. And so, having defeated the demon, sure, let's blame the other men for murders that I cannot stress enough were committed by a teenage girl.
Yes. And also the cult, which is an ancient organization, which is the Knights Templar, which is the stonemason, which is the Masons. It really is the Knights Templar, actually, more than anything else. Their leader is an FBI agent. These are the feds that are then rounded up and arrested and framed for murder by the local island police force, which as far as we know consists of one man, who is Zoe's father, because we never see any other cops.
One man who was in fact a member of the cult.
Yes. But that all aside, what is with the horses in this book, incidentally? Do the horses represent feminine power? Like, I
think they do, actually. Yeah,
I think the horses are like the incarnations of the divine feminine in this book.
Because, that's definitely the first sign that there's something weird going on in the island is Marion gets convinced to sit on a horse, and the horse immediately runs away with her.
Yes. Which is also a metaphor for desire.
Because then she meets Val.
Yeah, it's an extended metaphor for her lesbian awakening also.
Yes.
And that's the other major feminist theme that this book is grappling with, which is the most wizards versus lesbians part of it, is that the first thing that Val does that we see her, the other lesbian, is that she sees Charlotte, the hot one out of the two of them, and experiences a pang of desire deep in her belly. But that's not her desire. That is the demon living within her, giving her lesbian desires, which, again, an interesting thing to have in your book about girl power. But I think that it is deliberately meant to be doing the central wizards versus lesbians theme of wrestling with how you can be attracted to women without it being just the wizard doing the usual wizard thing to the lesbian, because this book hates nothing more than male desire. Male desire is the ultimate evil in this book. And so we have to understand that there is a demonic form of desire for women, which is like the kind of desire that the demon is interested in.
The kind of desire for conventionally attractive girls.
Exactly.
It's very important that, it's very important that when the demon goes, oh, I want the new girl, and Val goes, oh my God, Marion? Because she has a crush on Marion, who's the, chubby plain one.
Right.
And then the demon is like, what? No, obviously the hot sister.
So being attracted to girls is only permissible if you are a lesbian, if you do it in a non-masculine fashion.
To be fair, being attracted to girls is only permissible as a man if you're totally fine with never, ever, ever having sex with them.
Exactly. And this is a thing that it reifies itself over and over again. And in another one of my very, very favorite scenes in this book,
I'm not sure that being attracted to boys is okay in this book either, because a girl definitely gets murdered for her inability to just stay at home and masturbate.
Yeah, it's horror movie shit.
Yeah.
Like unreconstructed, Jason is punishing you for having sex, horror movie shit. But yeah, it absolutely works as, heterosexual sexual attraction, but particularly male attraction to women is the root of all evil in this world. And the Knights Templar are not exempt because they hunt the demon in a horny way.
Yes.
And this connection is made explicit in another one of my very favorite scenes from this book, which is when Zoe finds her father's grimoire, his cop grimoire.
Yes.
After saying one of my favorite lines in this book, and incidentally, eventually my notes just became me writing down sentences from this book, which I will list later. But the first line that I loved enough to write it down is Zoe, the teenage girl, says when she is walking through her own house where she lives and looking at what's around her, says to herself out loud, "Wow, Dad, got enough filing cabinets?" But anyway, she finds her dad's ancient cursed tome, the ancient cursed tome of the island cops, and
not of the island cops. Her dad got sent to the island.
Yes, I know.
By the Knights Templar.
But when he got to the island, he constructed a secret basement laboratory underneath his house.
Of course. Because he's part of a secret society. This is what you like. Look, we have two ancient secret patriarchal lineages going on in this book, and both of them have secret basements. It's just his is like secret cop lab basement, and the other one is secret demon sex dungeon.
Yes. But anyway, she finds his book full of that is all in Latin, which poor Grayson has to translate the entirety of this ancient tome later, because he is the most tokenist good man who has ever tokened. How to be a good man in this book is to do absolutely everything the girls ask you to and ask for nothing in return at any point, and not even complain about it when you get shot in the leg. You're up doing chores for the girls immediately after getting shot in the leg. But she confronts her father about this, and his response to that is like, "Do you remember when I found your fan fiction? Do you remember when I found your horny fan fiction that you wrote? Now this is Dad's horny fan fiction."
I remember that. That is, in fact, possibly the best scene in the book.
I stress to you, I don't want you, the listener of this podcast, based on the admittedly hilarious things that happen in this book, to go and read this book, because it's such a chore when these sorts of things aren't happening. And this only makes up like 10% of the running time of the novel.
It is a bit of a slog, yeah.
So you're not even going to have a good time in aggregate. This is the problem with hate reading or whatever. It's just, a lot of it is just being bored by the craft, because there's no craft. But anyway. So that is the first explicit, connection that we get between the secret organization and how horny and patriarchal controlling it is. before Agent Briggs reveals that he is a Bible thumping holy roller who hates women and calls them bitches and says that they only exist to further their demon hunting. And in order to further their demon hunting, they have to have like a cat fight.
Yeah, that was. I feel like the book works better if you just don't have the patriarchal cult at all.
Now, Kiana pointed out that there's a book or a series of books called The Raven Boys, which I don't know if you've read.
No, I've tried, and then I got bored.
Yes. Upon Kiana started reading this based on the noises that I was making while I was trying to read it, and was like, "Oh, this is just the plot of The Raven Boys, except with lesbians, and the lesbians have superpowers. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing."
See, I think that as we're talking, I'm beginning to wonder if actually this started life as Buffy fanfic.
Well, I thought maybe Raven Boys fanfic, but I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that this author does that. I don't know. This author is on record like being a huge fan of the Raven Boys, mind you. But the Raven Boys has an FBI agent in it, a sinister FBI agent.
So it's possible that plot line at least is the result of.
Yes, there's this author, I would say, wears her influences pretty straightforwardly on her sleeve, as we see with the, "Oh, I'm just going to take this thing from A Wrinkle in Time," having knocked a copy of A Wrinkle in Time off the shelf so that the characters could look at it, and then I can just call this Tessering. Because why? Because that's cooler than saying teleporting, I guess. You just need to rip this thing off from this other better book. I don't understand. I do not understand.
I don't understand that part either. But I do feel like we're underselling the Buffy the Vampire Slayer influence on this, given that, girl comes to town and you've got your like weirdo girl, and you've got your nerd boy, and you've got your hellmouth and your demons, and
I mean, I think that a large part of what is going on here is just, taking what's in the culture and reflecting it back on itself, but like heightening everything and making everything as dramatic as possible in a sort of a way that would appeal to a fanfic reader. And apparently that's like a winning combo because people like it. And I can see that to a certain extent. It makes it very easy to take apart, but it also doesn't mean that it's not like worthy of being analyzed on its thematic, content, because it does have a lot of ideas going on in it as well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's an accident that we're constantly talking about people's guts and about their stomachs here, even though, as you've said, that this is not visible, or this is invisible to you as a reader. I think that we are super duper invoking like eating disorders with all of the talking about like, stuff crawling out of people's mouths, and like they're, and having like these massive, emotional, things happening to them through their stomachs and through their like, the demon mark, in the rape metaphor, the demon marks Val on her uterus. And there are all these themes about like body insecurity and, body image stuff that is being projected on these girls.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, interesting stuff going on with goddess imagery, right?
Yeah.
Because it also like it lays on the feminist, like, woman goddess stuff with a really thick brush, but it's also, that comes from the evil cop grimoire, the Semper Trace, there's always three of them, triple goddess stuff. And it's like, I think that it is interested in like interrogating these feminist ideas and how, and how much you want to take them on and how much you don't. And again, in a very Wizards versus Lesbians way. Like, I mean, there is a "you don't get the moon" thing. She just says that to the collector at one point. Moon magic, feminine magic, etc. But also she says out loud, because everything in this book is said out loud, "We're going to rewrite this story."
Yes.
So that's thematically what is going on here. It's like, it is really interesting to see Wizards versus Lesbians stuff and ideas like just trickling down and being translated into what is absolute lowest common denominator dreck. And this was happening in 2018. You know, there's something prescient about it, which is in and of itself interesting.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Segue. I've been talking for a very long time, and this book would not like that. Let's decenter the male voice here.
Okay, so I'm going to complain about there's three big flinches near the end that I think really undermine a lot of the power and interestingness of this book. Because, again, what I liked about this book was that it was willing to make horror movie choices that a lot of fiction, YA and otherwise, a lot of speculative fiction, YA and otherwise from that era really wouldn't. Like killing the sister off real early, as opposed to, you know, even letting Marion put up a fight. And then at the end, it really backs away from all of that. And I mean, one of those things is the threatened, the entire time, like the thing that's been hanging over Val's head is that, you know, every woman in her family has been forced to have sex with this demon and also sacrifice girls to him. And she's been sacrificing girls to him, but if she does a bad job, one of her punishments is going to be that the demon will rape her. And I think it's totally fine that, you know, to have the decision be that the demon goes, well, I will, you know what? I don't even need to actually rape you. I can just do the metaphorical thing and put a smiley face or whatever on your uterus. But there's no real emotional impact of that. She's not hurt or traumatized by this in any way. And I mean, maybe this is just that Val, having grown up being groomed to be a, demon murderer on behalf of a demon, you know, can just dissociate from this. But then the second big flinch is that Marion, you know, upon seeing this, seeing this scar, Marion realizes, oh, Val did in fact murder my sister. I just had a big fight with Zoe over the fact that since I have just had sex with Val, clearly she couldn't have murdered my sister. And then she finds out, oh no, she did. And they just don't, like, she gets over it so fast.
I mean, that's entirely in keeping with the way that all emotions are handled in this story.
Right, which is that everybody experiences them incredibly intensely until there's a point at which they stop being plot relevant, or like convenient. You know, as soon as the plot needs them to stop experiencing them, they just like get switched off.
Yes.
But you know, and I think that that's also what's happening with Val and the demon, is that there's all of the, you know, she has all this terror of him, like he has all this power over her. And then suddenly he just doesn't. And part of that is that, you know, she's developed her own magical powers. But a big thing is just that, you know, that particular emotional switch has been flipped, and thus it's no longer a problem. And then finally, Marion sacrificed herself to defeat the demon. The fact that she comes back like 6 months later or whatever was a real disappointment.
Well, I mean, I knew that it was going to do that. Like,
I knew that, like, obviously, though, you know, one can always hope. But obviously in 2019, you can't kill the lesbian.
We're rewriting the story.
Like, it could have at least taken a lot like, they didn't even have to do any work to get her back. They just hang around for a few months, and then like, they're able to get her back. At least, you know, have to wait a decade or something.
Or, like, you know, do some Persephone shit, you know, make it so that she doesn't fully get back from the underworld. You know, if you've invoked all this mythology.
Like, have there be some cost.
Right.
I mean, I think the weird thing is that in the end, there's no cost to anything. Like, Marion loses her sister, and yet her mother, who's been paralyzed by grief, which is why they moved to this island in the first place, over the death of Marion's father, loses Charlotte and isn't really any worse off than she was before. And then she loses Marion, and she's like, well, I guess I gotta get over my depression at this point. Now that I have no one else to live for, I guess I just have to, be a surrogate mom to these other teenage girls. There's no cost to anything. And the thing that made the book interesting was that it seemed like there might be.
Yeah, it's like the way that these characters are set up, and again, like we get everything about them immediately upon their introduction, is, these characters are experiencing what you might call like relatable YA teenage problems. Like they're struggling with the death of a family member or the loss of a friend, or the difficulties with their with coming out and understanding their sexuality, etc., etc., etc. But because of the way that emotions work in this story, that is jettisoned almost immediately, and then sort of the book remembers that those are a thing when it needs to have their next emotionally charged conversation.
Sort of, except the thing is that
except
it
sometimes it
really
doesn't.
drops them. Like the thing is that,
like when convenient.
Like, but the thing, but by and large, I mean, part of, I think, again, what makes this book interesting to me, if not good, is that it, a book that is bad in a more boring way would simply have the emotions turn on and off as they're relevant. But instead, you always get this token resolution, at which point it no longer matters.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, part of this is, I think, because at the end, as is often in cases with books that are very concerned with their theming and rewriting the fairy tale, or re-examining the trope, it's important that it ends in a way that is morally upright, and fulfills the thematic checklist that the author has in mind. One of which is, we have a queer desire revolution here, when it is when Val has been possessed with the demon. Marion is like, but don't you remember that we had sex? And that was great. And that's what gives Val the strength to throw off the demonic possession, which again is very funny given how, lesbian desire was associated with the demonic possession in the first place, right at the beginning of the book. But given that,
well, the thing is that I'm not sure that I would call what Val is feeling lesbian desire. Like, I think that because, it's explicitly...
she's feeling the male desire within her.
Right, but the thing is that she is feeling this externally imposed male desire, and it is very much... and it is for girls who are just like her.
Right.
She is... it is not girls who... because Val's entire deal, which again, this book sets up this very interesting thing, which it then resolves in the most disappointing possible way. But Val's entire deal is that she's basically just she has been forced to become a blank canvas for this incredibly conventional narrative of desire, where she has to be beautiful and she has to only date the most popular jock boys who will help throw off suspicion, and all of her friends, and she has to be friends with all the other beautiful, conventionally attractive girls who she is then feeding to male desire. Yes. she is just like the, personification of being co-opted by the patriarchy, of,
Indeed.
Womanhood being co-opted by the patriarchy. And so...
and she also has to work to be queen bitch within the system, because as is written in the Cop Grimoire, girls are inherently, catty with each other, which is the power that we are going to use to banish the demon.
Right, and also the power that the demon uses to eat all the other girls. So, this is, it's actually kind of an interesting setup, because to have this, and then she's dealing with, her first genuine attraction to another person in her life, who's the schlubby, nerdy, girl, ugly sister. And, so great. Classic, here's your queer desire, it's being revolutionary. And then, but again, there's no consequences. Val's entire life has been built around creating and maintaining the social position, and she's never worried about the consequences of her desire for Marion.
No, nobody thinks about anything in that, like, 2 orders of magnitude deep, it's, or two
Yeah,
levels.
If Val starts dating the ugly nerd girl, and I'm using ugly just in the sense of she's all the thing, she's not blonde, she's not skinny.
Right. It's her role in the story to be the plain one.
Right, exactly. Like, the thing is that you get the impression in this that Val might have enough social cred to pull off dating another conventionally attractive girl, but to date somebody like Marianne, but like this would mess up her careful social balance, and maybe she's planning on just completely jettisoning her careful social balance now that the demon is dead, but she never even has to think about it, which again is disappointing, because what's the point of your lesbian awakening being the thing that allows you to throw off the ways in which the patriarchy has turned you into a Barbie doll if you never actually have to think about it and have your dramatic throwing off these shackles?
The reason that is that because this book, despite being about a power that is like invested in this old island and its and its history and such, in the same way that this happens in the Raven Boys with their Virginia forest, despite that, this book has no setting. There is no context that any of this stuff exists in. Like, the locations that we have in this book are the mansion, the woods, the legendary police station that everybody goes to, but nobody actually describes going to. The characters, there are no other adults on the island besides parents, and all of the other kids are teen movie extras. Despite the fact that we have 3 different POV characters, everything is so incredibly insular in their things, and they spend all of their time either monologuing to themselves about their emotional problems or having loud conversations about their emotional problems, that we do not get to see anything else. And therefore, Zoe's social context, Val's social context means nothing, because there is no social context. The world doesn't exist. It's all dots on a map. So of course she's not invested in it.
I think that's part of it, but I also think that this is the flinch. It's the same thing that bothers me about cozies, which this is absolutely not a cozy, but I think of it as the flinch which is the idea that there are certain kinds of emotions that are so unpleasant to vicariously experience that you can't have them happen. It's fine if the movie extras get murdered. It's fine if bad things happen to other people who we don't care about, but we can't ever have any real negative emotional impact on the reader. So nothing bad can ever happen to anybody that we care about. And so as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that actually killing off Charlotte, the sister, early on is a less interesting choice than I thought, because really it's just we have to murder her before we have a chance to get attached.
Yeah. She is a non-character in much the same way that all the other girls are non-characters. She might as well be just a starfish necklace. Although I breezed past this initially, it is uncomfortable how horny Marion is for Charlotte at the beginning of this book. I just want to stress that. I don't think that was on purpose.
No, I think that the point is that we need to know right away how beautiful. We need to know right away that Charlotte is, like Val.
And also to set up that Marion is jealous of Charlotte's affections, because that is part of the patriarchal imposed evil that we are fighting that is within her. But that jealousy is immediately sexual.
Which this was also a problem. I mean, this was also a problem with Zoe's relationship with Thora, which really, the thing is that Zoe's friendship with Thora, which we only see in memories, would be a really convincing depiction of, the thing that 2 queer girls can have, where it's never quite romantic, but it's the kind of intense friendship that really, that could easily have turned into dating, given the, opportunity. But except that Zoe is so determinedly heterosexual that it almost makes me wonder if I don't know. It feels like the book is trying so hard to sell us on the hotness of the demon's victims that it does end up making it seem like, the sister and the incredibly heterosexual, the incredibly,
Hetero
allo
ace.
hetero
Allo
ace, the incredibly hetero ace, so fine, she's queer. I'm not trying to relitigate that. I just want to note that she is only interested in boys, except that the ways in which she is jealous of Thora paying attention to somebody else felt, again, kind of sexual, just in the way that Marion's jealousy of her sister feels weirdly and uncomfortably sexual.
Yeah. I also want to contrast that with like the sort of classic horror movie conventional morality that underpins everything.
Right, because it ends up feeling like Charlotte is getting punished for being conventionally attractive, conventional, like interested in conventional teenage things.
Yeah, the couple that makes out and gets spiders rained on them for no particular reason is sort of a synecdoche of the way that the whole book feels about things like partying and drinking and having sex with guys. All the things that your mom doesn't want her daughter to do, basically, are rewarded with.
To be fair, having sex with girls is something that, the horror movie mom also doesn't want her daughter to do.
Yes, we're carving out an exception for this one.
Yes.
And that's what makes this progressive wizards versus lesbians, queer desires, the revolution, etc.
Right. But it is interesting that, you get this, because this is such a weird mishmash of genres. You get the conventional horror thing of you can't be a hot girl and also slutty without dying. And by slutty, we just mean want to make out with boys in the woods.
It's Isaac's notes with some quotable quotes. Before we wrap up, I want to briefly share some of my favorite quotes from this book, if that is okay.
Please, go for it. I would like to note for our listeners that Isaac, having read this book, was not willing to wait the usual 2 days until we could record. We are recording this with, we recorded this 15 minutes after he put it down, so...
I just didn't want to be thinking about it until we usually record. So I will start with we start with "Wow, Dad got enough filing cabinets." A great sentence. The fragility of her fearsome, fearful girl body. A dark piece of Marion's gutty insides jerking like a hooked fish. Were her guts onto something, or were her guts full of shit?
Okay, that one's great, though.
They probably are, just statistically.
Right. Just, it can be both,
depending on the time of day.
I mean, it depends on how much fiber she's been eating.
She'd be crushed in this house of ever-diminishing returns.
I mean, again, to return to the gut thing, I think, am I having a panic attack, or is this just indigestion, is in fact a legitimate question one can ask oneself.
I'm not disputing that. It's not the meaning. It is simply the way with words that I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
It was like a resonance fisting in the soft skin of her belly.
Oh, I remember that one. That one's real unfortunate.
It was like a resonance fisting in the soft skin of her belly. An exchange here. You slept with Val, Zoe said, lying on the floor beside Marion's bed. Yes. Where? Here. In your bed?
Where else?
When?
Well, clearly they should have done it on the basement couch and then broken up.
When Marion is confronting Val slightly later, she ends her, and this is incidentally the thing that is forgotten instantly thereafter so that we can have the plot. When I hear of your death, I'll rejoice, says the teenage girl. There's also a bit where she's walking downstairs and counting the stairs, and then we list off a few numbers to make sure that we understand that she's counting stairs and that these are 3 numbers of stairs that there might be on the way down to the secret basement.
Also, this is another example of no consequences. You're supposed to get, like, they even make the mistake of wiping all the dust off the books that are the entrance to the secret basement, and this does not. Actually, I think it comes back to bite Val. So that's actually fine.
I mean, they're trying to hide their actions from a psychic demon. Also, it's what can you do?
Okay, speaking of memorable things, the moment where Marion looks at the bed that's in the like demonic basement, like they're in this demonic basement that's clearly linked to these murders in the secret, and there's just like a fairly regular bed, except that there's like claw marks and scratch marks everywhere, and Marion is just like, was somebody having a really good time or a really bad time?
I mean, that's good. I think that's fine.
Right. No, it was funny.
The fact that the demon has been considerate enough to put a nice comfy bed in the rape chamber is another thing.
Like, I actually thought that was a good touch, honestly. I thought that did a good job of being like, yes, we're going to make this extra horrifying by, look, the demon is pretending to care about your comfort.
I found it. I thought that made it considerably less horrifying, just because of how hilarious the image was. But your mileage may vary. I would like to point out that one of the other demons, because this is happening all over the world, there's a demon everywhere. Is presumably this is a French demon or possibly a Quebecois demon. Is called Le Mangeur, which means the eater in French. And lastly, I would like to offer an alternative reading. Putting everything that we've said about the theming aside, I think there's a plausible reading of this book which is about feeling uncomfortably attracted to Ghislaine Maxwell.
What? Okay.
We're on an island. We're on a sexual abuse cult island. The island is being facilitated and helped by the girls, which is inconvenient if you're a feminist. Mm-hmm. Ghislaine Maxwell is a hot aristocratic woman who is enthralled to the demon. This is your fix-it fic for Ghislaine Maxwell. That's really
her daughter. I don't know if she has a daughter.
I don't know if she has a daughter. We're imagining a daughter so that we can continue to be YA. But
you're right that to some degree that this really is a sexual abuse is only the fault of the male, even when done by both parents, even when primarily, facilitated by the mother,
by Marion Zimmer Bradley or whoever.
It is clearly only the fault of the father.
Yes. Which, to the extent that anything in this book, as we said, I don't think that anything really rises to the level of offensive. That might.
I actually think that does. I actually think that the reading that, in its attempt to, give Val an interesting narrative arc as like a, groomed victim of sexual abuse, breaking the cycle or whatever, I think that it does not do. It is too sympathetic to her foremothers.
Yes, her wise grandmother who gave her advice for dealing with all of this. It also incidentally completely erases any reading that you might have of this, it being the super, super rich aristocratic family on this island. And also, who lived on this island before these people? What was, what do you mean the rock, like the animating principle of this island? Does that have anything to do with blah, 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 blah? I mean, best not to think about any of that. But,
Actually, no. To be fair, the book does show the ways in which the family being super rich allows them, allows them to control the culture in such a way that they can continue eating teenage girls. Because there's the whole thing where the one cop on the island is like, maybe we shouldn't be letting the teenagers drink and have sex in the murder woods, and that is immediately shut down by the family.
By the rich family, yeah. No,
by the rich family.
I wasn't saying that that's not brought up. I'm saying that it is then dismissed along with everything else when we get to the ending. And
Well, yeah, but I mean, everything is dismissed when we get to the ending in favor of actually the patriarchy is bad, and that's the only problem.
Mm-hmm. There's only ever room for one kind of critique at once, guys, which is why I'm the huffy guy doing the pseudo-Marxist readings of all of these feminist books. That's my job here, to be like, no, don't read it that way, read it this way.
I like having multiple readings of things.
I do too. I'm gently poking fun at myself.
Yes,
but I didn't do that this time because there was so much other stuff to talk about.
No,
what a mess!
It's true. It's true. You didn't. We managed to avoid the Marxist reading for once.
But wow.
All right. Well, do you feel like this has properly gotten it all out of your system so that you can go into the weekend with it no longer hanging over your head?
Absolutely. And I'd like to congratulate you for, like, when I said I want to do something that is not like the Child Garden next. I meant easy to read, though. I didn't mean hard to read in exactly the opposite direction.
Well, you gotta give.
I should have been more specific.
Right. Well, I also gave you After Party.
That's true, which is also awful.
I think.
We'll
well,
get to
you
that
know,
one, folks.
the next two books, and we can are going to be Eat the Ones You Love and Lolly Willows. And if you'd like to do what Lolly Willows next, and then Eat the Ones You Love, I'm fine with that. That would be a complete change of pace as well.
It's true, it would. Yeah, we'll discuss that off air. But thank you for listening. This has been a cathartic experience for me, and see you next time on Wizards versus Lesbians. And apologies, by the way, for the mic noise that is inevitably going to be in this, because when I laugh too hard, I jiggle the microphone, and I was doing a lot of laughing in this one.
All right. Anyway, bye.
Bye.